Do you feel that, folks? Do you feel that, Harmon? That's what a win feels like. The Vancouver Canucks have picked up their first win of the 2024-25 NHL season, and we're here to break it all down for you. My name is Dave Guidrelli. Joining me is Harmon Dial. This is Canucks Conversation. It is brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. We're going to be there for Canucks Army viewing parties all season long, the first of which is
Saturday.
Tomorrow, Saturday at 4 o'clock. Doors open at 3 p.m. If you haven't yet, get your tickets at nationgear.ca. Just minutes from the arena. Come by before and after the game or whatever event you're downtown for. Weekly drink specials. Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. I told you about the prizes. I'm going to start telling people the prizes.
Go for it.
I'm going to tell people. So I mentioned it. We've got the watch party tomorrow. Folks, you're going to want to be there. Flyers, Canucks. It's going to be a great game. 4 o'clock start. Doors open at 3 p.m. You're looking for somewhere to be. You're looking to get inside because of the rain. You're looking for somewhere to be tomorrow. Come to the watch party. We've got a lot of good stuff. The prizes. So we're also going to have trivia. There's also trivia that we did. Remember we did trivia?
Yeah, that was fun last year.
So we're going to do trivia again in the first intermission. So there's a chance to win prizes there. But we are also going to have a raffle, which is a skill-based raffle. So basically how it's going to work, we're going to have a jar of candy. Okay. There's going to be a certain number of candies in the jar, and you're going to guess for $5 per guess. We give you a sticker. So you get a sticker. So $5 sticker, but a chance to win if you guess the number of candies correctly in the jar, a chance to win some great prizes. One of which is a chance to skate on the ice at Rogers Arena the next day. So not wait months, wait a couple weeks, the next day, you're going to get a chance to skate at Rogers Arena if you win the prize by correctly guessing the number of candies in there. And there's also
the closest. You don't have to get it
closest.
Bang on
yeah,
right.
It's three closest. So the three closest people are gonna walk away with a prize. That is one of them. The other ones, we're gonna talk about them as well. A Canucks jersey, that's pretty cool. And a studio tour with us. You get to watch Canucks Convo, get filmed, Carson Price. Yeah. So you tell me which one of those is the best. But anyways, we've got good prizes. It's gonna be a really good time. Go get your tickets, nationgear.ca. Okay, I've spent enough time talking about the watch party. We're going to see a lot of people there tomorrow. You're going, right?
Yeah, I'm glad the Canucks won, because the level of angst in the room, if the Canucks were winless through 4 games and they're going up against the Flyers, now at least I feel like people will be a little bit more laid back, a little bit more relaxed, as opposed to if they were winless, I feel like we'd be showing up and everybody would just be bombarding and wondering like, oh, what's going on? How worried should we be?
Exactly. The vibes are good.
Vibes are good.
Like, the vibes are good. And I pointed this out last night as well. And I pointed it out on yesterday's show before the game even happened. But after the game happened, 4 points in 4 games. The same number of points as last season. Now, that's not to illustrate that, it's going to be just like last season. It's more so to illustrate that, okay, while those first 3 games were categorically not very fun, it's fine in the end, right? Like, they showed some flashes last night. And it's fine. It's fine. You got 4 points in 4 games. We're going to talk about it. There's no need to panic. But there is a need to get on down to Greta Bar YVR tomorrow for our event. Harm, let's break down this game.
That win reminded me of when the Oilers came back and beat the Flyers. Right? Where it's just, you needed it to get the sigh of relief. I don't know if you watched that Oilers game against the Flyers. Really entertaining. Oilers had a third period comeback, scored to tie it up, and then won in OT. But we know that Edmonton's had a rough start, and you could just sense the level of relief when they finally got that first victory, and just that market went from teetering on the edge of panic. Oh boy, what's going wrong, to all right, let's just hit the reset button. They'll figure it out. They'll be okay. And I sense a similar vibe now that the Canucks have won last night, and that doesn't mean they're out of the woods. There's still question marks. There's still concerns around the team, but they really, really needed this one. And we were just getting too late for the moral victories of, well, at least they picked up a point, and at least they've got points in 3 or 4 games. Like, they really needed the first W.
Because that was the thing I was thinking about, was in the third period, and when it switched to overtime, I was just like, hey, like, again, it's overtime. It's a coin flip. NHL overtime is a coin flip, especially the shootout. But I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, what if they lose this game? Like, I was starting to think about that. Like, what do we talk about today if they lose that game? And thankfully, we don't even need to answer that question. But in my mind, again, it's just they played well. I think the better team won last night, but there was a chance that they lost. And if they lost, again, this is a team that doesn't have a win through 4 games. Not the case. Not the case. They pick up the win tomorrow. Let's break it all down. Ari45 early in the chat says, I think I was more encouraged by Petey's play than the win. Lots to talk about with this game. Lots to talk about with Elias Pettersson's line. JT Miller gets the overtime victory. We're going to be joined by Wyatt Arndt, the stanchion, the author of the Stanchies. He's going to join us on today's show. But Harm, as we break down this game, I want to start in the crease, and it's going to be the subject of our poll question, so we'll come back to it. But Kevin Lankinen was stellar in this game. I broke down, it's not published yet, but I finished the article over at Canucks Army. I was kind of diving into the numbers with Lankinen and Shilovs to this point. Lankinen last night was really, really good. He saved an entire goal above expected last night. That's the biggest impact a Canucks goaltender has had on a game to this point in the year. I know it's only 4 games in, but I was really impressed with what I saw from Kevin Lankinen last night.
Especially because Bobrovsky was on his A game.
Yeah.
And to have a goaltender of Bobrovsky's pedigree who, yeah, he's streaky. He's prone to stretches where he dominates and stretches where he's really cold. But when Bobrovsky's on, he is really difficult to beat. And so for Lankinen to step up there on a night where Bobrovsky, especially in that third period, was on one, the Canucks really needed that type of goaltending performance. And it's honestly the type of goaltending performance that they got so often from Thatcher Demko last year. Now, you can expect that from Lankinen on a consistent basis? Not necessarily, but I think it gives you confidence that, okay, he can be a steady hand in the crease. And yeah, he's not going to be a Thatcher Demko. You're still waiting for him to come back and give you that next level of elite goaltending. But at least perhaps there isn't going to be as much of a concern about the bottom falling out with the play that they're getting between the pipes.
Exactly.
What stands out? I'm curious to get your take, by the way.
Puck handling.
Well, yeah, I mean, puck handling is not the best, which honestly I'd heard before or right around when he signed. But given that he's not the biggest goaltender, what stands out to you about why he's been able to have some early success?
His reaction time's phenomenal. Here's another thing. He already looks. And I pointed this out when he signed. I said, when you watch Kevin Lankinen warm up and when you watch him play, you're going to see a goalie that looks a hell of a lot like Thatcher Demko, like a goalie who's been trained by Ian Clark and Marco Trenis. Because, of course, we know Marco Trenis is Ian Clark's protege. He kind of believes the same things that Ian Clark believes. And Marco's worked with Lankinen before. Lankinen's a goalie that fits perfectly into the way that the Canucks want their goalies to play. So, again, the post integration, like he's in that RVH a lot, just like Canucks goaltenders usually are. So, that's what stands out to me the most, is that he just looks like a goalie who's been with the organization for years, and he's a seamless fit.
Yeah, it's also interesting because he's listed at 6'2", which is kind of interesting because 6'2" in normal terms is pretty tall. And yet for goaltenders, you watch him in the crease, and especially because we're used to like Jacob Markstrom and Thatcher Demko and Shilovs, these like really tall goaltenders. You watch him and initially you're like, oh, this guy doesn't take up a lot of space, but just the way that he's able to track movement, even off rushes, right? His actual skating in the crease, how he's able to follow
power in the legs.
Also the way that he's able to, like, when guys are deking, he's able to just smoothly like, I'm not doing the best job of articulating it, but just smoothly follow the path that the puck carrier is trying to go. He doesn't get he doesn't overcompensate on one side. Yeah. He's just able to track the play really well. So that's super encouraging for a Canucks side that, remember last year, for as well as they played with their skater group, they still benefited from having the second best goaltender in the NHL last season.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is when you look at the other end, right? And this is something we were talking about through 2 games, is Bobrovsky had his game and Vasilevsky had his game. I'm not saying the Canucks got goalied in both games, but I would say Lankinen went toe-to-toe with Bobrovsky last night. Like, he was right there with one of the best goalies in the league. Shilovs wasn't with Vasilevsky, but you're not expecting that every night, but it is something that Canucks are kind of used to having. And they got it last night with Kevin Lankinen. Our poll question's about Lankinen, so let's move on from Lankinen. Let's kind of work our way out from the net. Quinn Hughes with 9 shots, career high. His last career high was 7. So he just continues to be otherworldly. I gave you this take before the show, Harm. I said Quinn Hughes might put up less points this year and not win the Norris because he put up less points. But it'll be another year where fans in Vancouver are the only ones that really know how good he's been and how good he'll probably be all season long. He was just phenomenal again last night.
The way that he is able to control play, he was a one-man show in terms of putting this team and putting this offense on his back. The shot first mentality was so noticeable. Every time he got the puck, there were times when I was like, okay, Quinn, like, you don't need to shoot it every time, but the persistence paid off. I mean, even on his goal, he gets the initial one blocked, but doesn't hesitate, fires another one right to the net. And again, that's where his improvement as a shooter compared to when he started, when he first entered the league. It's not that he's got this big booming shot, Evan Bouchard like, where opposing forwards are scared of blocking it, but he's able to beat goalies cleanly now, especially if there's some traffic in front. And there's just no way that he would have been able to consistently do that when he was a rookie or when he was a sophomore. And to just know the level of work that he put in the last couple of off seasons to become a more dangerous individual scoring threat, it's paid off in spades, and they needed that type of performance. We've spoken so much about, well, the Canucks' best players need to be their best players. And yeah, Quinn Hughes was doing a lot of good things from a play controlling perspective, but we were still waiting, I think, for him to really take that next level in actually putting the puck in the back of the net. Even in the Philly game, for example, I brought up that, hey, his play driving numbers are pretty good, but he just like couldn't get any shots through traffic. He was consistently getting blocked. I thought he did a much better job of actually getting his shots to the net, and he got rewarded for it.
What do you think of Quinn Hughes 2.0, Eric Brandstrom?
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Pump the brakes.
Gustav Forsling, my
Pump
bad.
the
Gustav
brakes.
Forsling 2.0. What did you think of Eric Brandstrom in all seriousness?
I thought he was fine. I thought
he was the best player on his pair.
Yeah, Darren had a rough night. But again, that's a really low bar because
I think he's an upgrade. I think he's at least earned the right to not come out of the lineup when Derek Forbert returns.
He should stick in the lineup, but I mean, there was a play, I want to say, in the second period where the Canucks looked like they had possession of the puck in the neutral zone. Soucy was going off for a change. So there was only one defenseman left on the ice at the time. And Brandstrom thought it was an opportunity where the Canucks had clear possession, started activating up to try and join offensively. And as that was happening, before the Canucks even lost it, I was like, oh boy, I don't know about that read. I was like, oh, that seems a little bit early to be jumping up. The Panthers picked up the puck. They hit one of their forwards for a breakaway. Brandstrom, had he not made the wrong read and jumped up in that play, would have been there to defend it one-on-one. Instead, it turns into a breakaway. I didn't put that entirely on him because Soucy was also changing, but I do think that was a preventable mistake. And those are the moments where I'm sure Rick Talk is going to watch that back and go, I don't love that. I don't want to see that. But overall, considering the context of it's his first game, he didn't even get a full practice. I thought he was fine. I thought he was okay.
That's fair. Carson Soucy. I thought it was another rough night for him. We talked about him yesterday, highlighted how a lot of the bottom four struggles are on Soucy, who should be playing much better than he is. I thought it was another rough night for him.
Yeah, it's interesting because when the Canucks first signed him, I watched a lot of the tape of him in Seattle, especially in the playoffs. And I thought to myself, okay, he profiles as a number 4 or 5 defenseman. And my take was, defensively, he's solid enough to be second pair caliber, but his puck skills need to improve even by 10%. And if he can do that, be competent at not necessarily being a puck mover, but just being able to make credible passes and be reliable, not make mistakes with the puck, then I can see him blossoming and potentially breaking out as a second pair guy. He did that last year. Like, noticeably to me, he took a 10-15% improvement in making better decisions when he had possession. And I actually spoke to him about that and how even when he was injured, he was able to spend time with skills coach and really hone in on that aspect of his game. So far this year, it's not just that defensively he's made some uncharacteristic blunders, like, for example, not picking up Britton Point on the 2-0 goal or the Huberdeau season opening goal in the third period. Like that part of his game, the defensive blunders, he'll clean up, but he's also giving the puck away a little bit more often than we're used to. And that's where I'm thinking, okay, he hasn't always played at the level of being a second pair caliber guy. And it's his puck play that I'm going to be watching and monitoring more closely, because again, the defensive blunders, I expect that he's a good enough player. He's got the IQ, he's got the reach, he's got the size. He'll be fine defensively. He can't be this below average at moving the puck. Otherwise this pair is just going to get caved.
That's all it comes down to. And I'm trying to figure out, we're going to talk about the lines later in the show. Wyatt's going to join us in a matter of moments. I don't know when he's getting here. Wyatt shows up whenever he wants, and then we'll just bring him in. But I've been thinking about mostly the forward lines of how I'd like to see them approach going forward. Obviously starting with tomorrow's game in Philadelphia. We have a watch party, by the way, folks, if you hadn't heard, for that game. The defense pairs are a little more murky to me, but I would think that you have to just keep putting it out the way it is when it comes to that pairing with Soucy. Like, I don't think I don't think you can do Soucy Desharnais and expect improvement. No. Like, that's not going to happen. I saw people suggesting that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you stick with it how it is. Where I'd like to see changes is in the forward group. Do you want to move on to the forwards now? From
one quick thing. I'm sure this won't surprise anybody, and of course this is a small sample, but early on, the difference between how the Canucks are controlling play with Quinn Hughes on the ice versus when he's on the bench is actually kind of hilarious, right? Like,
dramatic.
At 5-on-5, I've got it here. The Canucks are controlling around 67% of scoring chances, right? So they're not just dominating teams, they're throttling them. Controlling play at an elite level. When he's on the bench so far, it's been closer to 33% share of shots and around 40% of scoring chances, which is you're controlling play like one of the worst teams in the NHL. It's just a huge difference. And again, I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to anybody, but it's like when this one player is on the ice, the Canucks look like the best team in the NHL at 5-on-5. When he's off the ice, they look like the worst team in the NHL from a play controlling perspective.
Is that a coincidence, Harm? Is that a coincidence, or is that just how good Quinn Hughes is? Because that's what voters are going to have to figure out for themselves, but they won't. They're not. Like, that's the thing. I said it. It's going to be one of those years. It's like the old Thatcher Demko thing, right? We know how good Thatcher Demko's been for years now, but it took until the team in front of him improved, so his numbers improved, and the wins started coming for the rest of the league to kind of catch up. And obviously, we see his numbers improve, and we see him be a Vezina finalist last year. But Thatcher Demko's been great for years now. It's going to be the same sort of thing with Quinn Hughes. Kind of like it was with Quinn Hughes prior to last season was we know how great Quinn Hughes is, but it's going to take team success, and it's going to take the point totals for the rest of the league to notice it. Now coming off that Norris Trophy, even if he's playing as well as he is right now, if the point totals aren't there, he ain't winning the Norris.
Yeah, but who cares?
Who cares?
Like, I'll
Everybody
be honest,
in Vancouver's going to know it.
All that matters is if he continues driving the bus to this level, the Canucks will be in a good spot. And if he tails off, and I'm not talking point totals wise, I'm talking just impact in driving play and being a one-man breakout machine and being the type of defenseman that it doesn't matter whether the first line is on the ice or the fourth line is on the ice, they're just going to attack downhill all the time against the opposition. Like, that's gonna, like, they can't afford Quinn to drop even modestly at this point.
The hell does that look like? That. Oh, I heard music. I'm sorry. That makes me think about what this team would look like if we didn't have Archer, or if it was Archer Shilovs and Yuri Patera together.
Yeah, I mean, let's not talk about that.
No, let's not talk about that. The music's not loud enough, Jacob. We couldn't hear anything. And here's Wyatt now.
Give me the entrance I deserve, boys.
That was so funny. I'm like, I think I hear music.
I thought you were playing into it. You just couldn't hear
it. No, I couldn't hear it. I faintly heard it. But sometimes that happens in my old age. Wyatt, you're at Club 42. Was it? It wasn't Club 42. Wasn't it just the Ham Club last? What did you call it?
It's always Club 42. It's always Wellwood. Magic Mittens deserve some love. So it's always Club 42. Are you mansplaining to me my own club, man? What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while. We never did that football quiz. I'm a football guy now, Wyatt. I don't know if you've heard.
Who's your team?
do fantasy football. Ask Drancer about my football.
No,
knowledge.
I'm
I
almost
do
scared.
My brother and I do fantasy football leagues together now, and he does everything. And I draft the highest players, and then he takes over. So it's
No,
worked out so far. Wyatt, the stanchion Arndt, joins us here on Canucks Conversation. Wyatt, you wrote the stanchies last night. A player you're always highlighting, a guy you voted on the NHL awards last year,
you got a Selke vote.
picking up a Selke vote from
That's
Wyatt.
right.
You weren't the only one either. But anyways, Connor Garland, really strong start to the season for him so far this year.
I think he's a coach's dream, especially for Rick Tocchet. Just like he never quits. Even if you see him give a bad play or a turnover, he's always skating really hard to get back into the play and try and make up for it. I don't know if there's a better guy in the boards than Garland. Like, at the end of his days when he retires, he's got to teach board battles to people because size doesn't matter to him. He just finds ways to use his body positioning, to use a smart stick. It almost feels like sometimes I'm like, am I saying too much about Garland? But no, he's just a fantastic, complete player for this team. And he has been one of the best players, aside from Quinn Hughes, for this team to start the season.
Wyatt, you're a vibes guy. We know this. What are your vibes like with the Canucks through 4 games and them finally picking up their first victory?
And honestly, it kind of is starting how I thought last season was going to go, where the team was just trying to find their identity, kind of find their flow under Rick Tocchet. I think we all know last year, I think they scored like 80% off the rush goals to start the season. Like they had a lot of things go their way. It made that hot start work. And by the end of the season, they were a really good team. And I think they're going to find their way. Again, it's only 4 games. I think that last game was their best games in terms of, finding a bit more identity and winning those puck battles. And it was even like the Bluger goal. Like I pointed out, like he was already skating towards the net before the shot was even off. And that's kind of how you win these battles. You're constantly moving and you get the jump because the guy who was beside, I don't know, was guarding him, but he was, flat footed, couldn't get to it. And that's kind of what this team used to do, is to work really hard. And I know, as you point out, like Quinn Hughes obviously is the engine of this team. And if he's not going there, like if he gets injured, this team is done. Like that, he is that good of a player for them. The puck movement on the back end really concerns me. People talk a lot about, just a jump. I'm going to do the Trump weave here to talk about Zadorov and how I'm leaving the team and talking about, he's just like a 5D man. I think that takes away from the fact that he could be a 4D man too. Like you're kind of missing those guys that can go into your top 4, and it's not that big of a deal. And I think right now, for me, the big concern is the back end. But overall, last game, if you're asking, what was good about it, that compete level that Tocchet talks about was there.
Where do you come in on the conversations, the criticism around Elias Pettersson? I think it was his best game of the year last night. No coincidence. He's playing with your boy, Connor Garland. But where do you come in with all the criticism around Elias Pettersson through 4 games?
Yeah, I like how the guy on Twitter called him the Energizer Bunny. He's playing with Hoglander and Garland. It's a good deal. I think, again, you can see his hockey intelligence is there. Like he's doing really good passing. He's still sucking people in and making nice passes to open up lanes for other players. But we know when Elias Pettersson's feeling it, like he can be the guy that can drive a line. He can be the guy that can do moves. He can create his own space. And right now, that's not really happening. So the criticism is warranted, but it feels like anytime you kind of point out, hey, he's doing good here, people are yelling at you, well, he has to do better than that. Like, no, I fully agree. We all agree that Pettersson needs to hit that other gear. But if you're just talking about a guy that like last year had the knee injury and like it's only 4 games in, like I'm going to give him a bit of time to kind of find his groove and to figure out what's going on. And he's still a tremendous player. He's still going to be a big part of this team. But yeah, like playmaking wise and hockey intelligence wise is there, but like driving to the net and kind of like, and getting the shot off, like it's just not there for him right now.
Here's the thing and I just want to get both your thoughts on this if you have any comment, but the thing that I keep thinking about is, you're right, Wyatt, when people point out positives, it comes with the caveat of, yeah, we need to see him be better. We all know that. But to me, it's okay, if you're a star player, your floor needs to be higher than what we've seen from Elias Pettersson. Like he was engaged last night. Like, what was it? 4 blocked shots, 4 or 3, I don't know what he had. But anyways, he was blocking shots, he's throwing hits. To me, like if you're a star player, if you're Elias Pettersson, what we saw last night needs to be your floor. Like that needs to be not the worst. Like you're going to have awful games, but like if you're not on your game from the, being a cerebral point producer perspective, if you're not doing that on that night, your floor needs to be basically, I think, what we saw last night. And I like to think that when he was at his best over the past few years, like that was his floor. What we saw last night was his floor. And I know right now it's his best performance of the season, but to me, like if we're going to raise the bar, which I think the bar should be raised for a well-paid player and a star player like him, like to me, that's what you need to see moving forward is it's just like, okay, when you're not producing points and you're not on your game as a star player, that's what it looks like is a fine game like we saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You talk about, the Selke vote that Garland got, which I felt was very warranted. Like, we used to talk about that way about Elias Pettersson. His 200-foot game was that good, and he'd be in his own zone, and he'd be defensively just a mastermind of getting shooting lanes, getting his stick on it, because he's not the fleetest of foot. His skating is a bit clunky, but like he's so smart that he knows where to go. And we're not seeing that whole 200-foot game. And last night was the first kind of like, a little twinkle that that's still there. And whether it's his knee or his confidence, like I know we saw the F-bomb on air last night when he was frustrated he couldn't get the puck out, whether his wrist isn't, where it should be, whatever it may be, like we're not getting that full 200-foot game from Pettersson. And you're right, a lot of players can have ups and downs in their game. Like JT Miller can have some of the dumbest passes you've ever seen. And sometimes he can just check out completely on a play. And like was at its worst under Boudreau when he just wouldn't even back check, right? He would just kind of float around. But the thing about him is like as a top player, he would have those shifts where he'd throw a big hit. He'd get a shot off. He'd have an end-to-end rush. That was kind of his game. And with Elias Pettersson, if he's not going, he will at least always had that 200-foot game where defensively he was shutting down the opposition. And right now you're not getting that. So you can't let him float because like JT Miller can have those ups and downs, but he'd have those top ends. And right now Elias Pettersson's not giving those top ends.
I think we all agree that Pettersson, Garland, Höglander should stick as a line. But when I look at the rest of the forward group, like I was surprised that they gave Archie Baines another crack on the JT Miller line. I didn't think this early we'd be seeing Jake DeBrusk centered by Teddy Bluger. Like, what do you make of the other two top 9 lines, and what combinations would you maybe like to see?
Yeah, there seems to be kind of a theme. I don't know how much input Miller has in his lines. We saw during a break and play him going over the whiteboard with Canuck. I assume they have a good relationship. It feels like that's kind of the player that gets inserted a lot with him. The Phil Giuseppes and like the Archie Baines, the guys are just going to work hard and kind of go to the right spots. But like I was really tantalized by when Jake DeBrusk played with them, just like that. I know they kind of hesitate from going over from the quote unquote super line. But Jake DeBrusk, like when he gets going, like, and I hate using comparisons. People go, he's not that player, but like he has a bit of that Todd Bertuzzi game where when he picks up speed, people have to back off, and it creates room for his line mates. And there was like at least 3 or 4 times that night where he just started picking up speed and like rushed into the zone and went straight to the net. And that really was what they all said. Oh, that's the Jake Virtanen play that they wanted, right? That was never happened, and we saw it with him. And even overtime, when he ran over Bobrovsky, like I was like, there's no room to go anywhere. He just ran right into Bobrovsky, and like he has no fear of going to the net, and that creates room for, especially for cerebral players like Brock and Miller. So for me, I really do like the idea of kind of platoon the top 2 lines and putting all your talent there and kind of seeing what happens.
Hey, Wyatt, the goaltending is a conversation right now. It looks like Kevin Lankinen's crease. Me personally, I'm not at the point where it's like play until you lose type thing. If you win, you're in. Like, I don't think it's at that point yet. I would basically, regardless of result, I would start Lankinen against Philadelphia, and then I would go back to Shilovs against Chicago. That gives Shilovs a week between starts, and then it gives Lankinen exactly a week as well, because they don't play again until Pittsburgh visits them at home. I'm not thinking now's the time to go Lankinen against Philly, Lankinen Chicago, Lankinen Pittsburgh. I don't think it's at that point yet. It's getting there, and it's certainly at a different point now that we're even saying Lankinen should start tomorrow's game. But like, I'm assuming you don't disagree that Lankinen should get tomorrow's start. But where are you at with the goaltending?
Yeah, I hate agreeing with you, that, but I think you're right on this one. I agree. Like, it's way too early. It's 4 games in. You got 2 guys that really haven't proven a ton for like being like, oh, they're a bona fide starter. You're platoon until Demko's back. I do like the idea of resting both because like in today's NHL, overworking goalies just never works well. So I do think they're not in a case of like Lankinen, it's your net, go for it. So I do like kind of giving it another week. But this is the NHL, and if the Canucks, if Lankinen plays well against the Flyers, and then Shilovs really kind of quote unquote poops the bed. I don't know what you're swearing is in this podcast, but he poops the bed. Then maybe you're kind of going with Kevin because you're like, we need points, and at this point, you do want to keep Shilovs in rotation and keep his confidence up. But if Lankinen keeps playing the way he is, where like he's tracking the puck well, he looks confident in net. I think after like a week or 2, if Shilovs can't match that, it's really easy to keep going with Kevin because you go with the guy that's showing it.
And I mean, you're still hopeful that Thatcher Demko's coming back in early November. Early November is when the Canucks schedule starts to get busy. Are they going to have 3 goalies around at that time? I think we're all just hoping.
Still hopeful about an early November timeline, though. Like,
okay, mid-November. Mid-November, It cools down, though. Like, the Canucks schedule, I'm not sure if you've looked ahead very much, but like mid to late November, it cools down. But like early November, they play a lot. There's a lot of games.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point. I don't know what you think, Wyatt, but I'm almost like I'll see it when I believe it, or I'll believe it when whatever.
No, totally.
I need to see him practicing with the main group before I start taking this seriously, regardless of what like people are reporting.
Yeah, I mean, with what's going on with Demko, we've talked about for almost 3 years. Like, he would just play so many games, and he kept getting injured. And like, well, they're overworking him. And now with the whole injury status and the whole, even the spotlight on it is just so kind of like a weird scenario. Even the injury talking about, oh, it's like it was almost in whispers. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but I can't talk about it. You're like, what do we do? Like, what? Why can't we just talk about it? I was like, did you lose a leg? It's like, no, it's just a weird knee injury. I'm like, okay, okay. So I think right now the spotlight on him and the fact that like you see all these goalie contracts going higher and higher in the NHL to me, which is bizarre. Like, I think you can't overpay for goalies, but let's Demko. There's a big argument there. That's one of the guys you would overpay, but then then his injury status, his health status comes into play. So I think they're at the point that where unless the two goalies right now are just totally bombing it out and they need someone to save them, I give Demko as much time as he needs. I tell him to slow it down. I don't care if he's practicing for like 2-3 weeks. If Kevin's playing fantastic or Shilov's won the net, I'm telling Demko just rest up, take your time, because at this point they can't afford to bring him in with even the hint of, oh, we rushed him back. Because that would just I can't think of a worse scenario than that would just cause horrible things. So take your time, Thatcher. Take your time.
Through 4 games, I think the biggest concern that everybody has is the bottom 4. Now, I think we all knew heading into the season that it was going to be a potential weakness, that, okay, they don't have enough speed and puck moving skill there. But I don't think anybody, like, there's a difference between the bottom 4 looking at it and going, this is going to require an eventual upgrade, but it's going to be at least serviceable for the regular season until you can go out and acquire a guy or two, versus, oh boy, this is a full-blown potential tire fire. And I think we expected it to be the former, and through 4 games has been more of the latter. I think one of the biggest reasons for that is because the Soucy-Myers pair, which was really effective for them last year. It wasn't perfect, but they won their matchups in the second pair role, went up against top lines. They've taken a step back so far this year. What are you seeing or not seeing from that Soucy-Myers pair so far?
Well, we're seeing some things from Soucy that are, normally is in his game. Like, I think it was, I don't know, the second or third game, he just made a lunge at a guy on the boards and got beat. Like, he's not playing a safe game. He's kind of being a bit more like Jolson, almost like tracking, just hoping he can stop a guy and buy him. I don't know if it's just he's still in summer hockey mode or he just needs time to get into game mode. But Tyler Myers, asking him to be consistent, that's a dangerous ask. And I think last year was one of Myers' better year, but like, you're asking him to be consistent this year. That's, I don't think you're going to get that. I think the big issue for me is like I said, Zadorov and Ian Cole were underrated in a sense that Ian Cole is a very smart hockey player. Obviously, they ran him down. He got injuries. I don't think he's playing 21 minutes now, or like you can't rely on him for like that many minutes. But having him around and having Zadorov when they were on, that allowed you to maybe go to them for 18 minutes a game and dropping Myers and Soucy down. It allowed you to have that ability to like not lean on just one pairing more than others. And obviously Quinn Hughes will get his minutes, Hronek will get his minutes. But if Soucy and Myers aren't, you're not feeling it with them, you can't ask that third pairing right now to step up their game that much. And in the past, you could ask Zadorov and Ian Cole to step up their game. And even if Ian Cole was out, Jolson and Zadorov, like, they could still kind of have those moments where like Zadorov would go off, and he had that speed, and he wasn't consistent, but he could have speed. He could skate well. He could provide offense, and he could hit. So I think moving on, we all knew it would be a bit of a dip, but for me, the biggest thing is now you have no like emergency button to be like, oh, one pairing's not feeling it, I'll go with the other guys.
Did you see the report today about Zadorov or no?
Yeah, I saw that thing. I mean, that's kind of his thing, though. Like, he's always, I'm offended. Like, I think it's his fuel, is being offended. But
no.
What's the report?
The one today. There was one today. I'll read it because
give it to me.
I'm assuming a lot of the chat doesn't know it either.
Okay.
Rick Dollywell reported this on Sportsnet 650's Halford and Bruff, talking about the contract offer that the Canucks made to Zadorov. This is from Dollywell. He said the Canucks made an offer of 4 years at $4.6 million per year. I believe Zadorov was looking for that 5th year. Term was the big issue, not money. The Canucks wouldn't budge on 4 years. Milstein was pushing hard for that 5th year. He wasn't even negotiating money. It was all about that 5th year. He was negotiating term, not money. This is again before the playoffs. The Canucks would not go to that 5th year. And then Dollywell added that in the end, the Canucks did go to the 5th year, but at that point, it was too late, and Zadorov was already heading for Boston. So just your reaction to that, a 5-year contract at $4.6 million.
Yeah, I'm assuming they had money. They were trying to see if they can make a Gensel type player work. I assume like that's they should be doing, right? Like, you can't say like if they can add a Gensel, like why wouldn't they? They'd want to see if they could do that. I think if you're a player that gets offended by the front office trying to do best for its team, then what are you going to do? I don't think they should be vaping Zadorov. They had to do what they had to do. For me, the 5 years, I honestly wouldn't have an issue with that, but I don't know that, again, if they're sitting there going like, I think we have a really good shot at Gensel, but we have to table an imaginary whatever contract for him. you can't give it. Whatever reason, like they've got their own inner salary structure. In terms of like, is that too much for him? Like for me, I like after seeing this team overspend for years, I think if there was one player I would kind of overterm or overspend a bit, it would be for Zadorov type player, because like when he does hit those highs, he brings something that no one else in his team can really on the back end aside from Hughes. He just, again, you're basing a lot of it on like the 2 rounds of the playoffs. You don't want to go too deep into that, but just the fact he can elevate his game like that, like Noah Jolson's never going to do that, right? You're never going to get that from Forbert. You're never going to get that. So if they were going to roll the dice, I would have been fine with that. But again, at the end of the day, like they're trying to make the best team they can. They got to table money somewhere. And if he's going to sit there being like, I'm offended to give it an extra year, like, bro, it's a business.
Why
I was gonna like lean into me. No,
I was waiting for Harmon's hot take on Zadorov.
Well, okay. I mean,
here we go.
well, now that you mention it,
I thought you might have wanted to initially follow up there with something else, but I mean, my thought was I don't want to change my tune. Like at the time, the way I was looking at Zadorov was unbelievable playoff run, but he wasn't the player that he was in the playoffs, like during the regular season. Like I think a lot of people forget that after a while, especially like January, February, March, his minutes were declining, and he was being deployed like a 5-6 defender, and nobody before the playoffs. Like if you asked any Canucks fan before the playoffs, would you sign this guy to a 4.6 times
before the playoffs? Great point.
Times 5.
Yeah.
I bet you the vast majority of fans would have said no. Right now,
after playoffs. And after seeing Vinny Desharnais move the puck for 2 games?
Well, that's the other thing is, would signing a contract like that have been, the most efficient or the best way to spend money? Maybe not. Maybe not. But, and this is something I talked about in the offseason when the Canucks had signed Myers and Desharnais, and all of a sudden it's like they've got $5 million tied into 2 defense.
The same guy.
Yeah. Like I would have much rather signed like a Brandstrom type, gone cheap for the third pair, and then paid $4.5 million for a player in Zadorov that I think is better than Tyler Myers. Now, maybe not Zadorov specifically, but the point being, rather than taking this like balanced approach where it's like $3 million to one guy, $2 million to one, I would have just gone cheap on the third pair and gone for a higher end target to sort of give you a bit more punch in the middle of your defense lineup. And if that option would have been Zadorov, great. If not, there would have been other options too.
Zadorov, first pairing minutes with Charlie McAvoy right now in Boston. So they're getting the most of their he's got 5 points too, doesn't he? Or maybe McAvoy has 5 points.
Lindholm has 5 points.
What does Zadorov have?
I don't know.
Wyatt? This one game for sure, I know. But I mean, that's also the thing, like
3 points.
Phil Hronek's getting the prime duty of Hronek without Quinn Hughes. So like Zadorov getting to play with McAvoy is going to look good no matter what. That's McAvoy being good. I do fully agree with Harmon in the sense that like I thought we'd kind of moved away from that Jim Benning approach of like stockpiling your bottom pairings like with overpriced people. Like you don't need to do that. They have proof of that. Like they can have smart value buys. Whether like Sprong's not working out now, but you still like it doesn't hurt you. If you're out of the lineup, it's under $1 million. Ian Cole wasn't that much. Like you can find ways to spend your money a bit more wisely, and I think just kind of it felt like just bringing in big guys to replace Zadorov's size. Like, oh, big guys win at hockey. And it's like, that feels like a step backwards because we're seeing a lack of puck movement. That really hurts this team on the back end.
And to me, that was the lesson was, okay, you can find a guy rarely who has the size and has the skating and has the puck moving, and Zadorov had all that. So again, I don't think the lesson was, oh, well, we need to replace his, like, that's the thing. We've all stood next to Nikita Zadorov. Okay. Question for the group. If we had a door that Vinny Desharnais was standing behind and Nikita Zadorov was standing behind. They're not bracing themselves, but they're pushed up against the door. And I say, okay, for $1 million, you have to run through one of these doors. We're all running at the Desharnais door. You're not running at the Zadorov door. You're going to get a concussion.
That was a really weird journey you took us on.
Well, I'm saying
they're not bracing themselves against the door. Where are we going?
He's wider. He's just 100%. He's a wall. He's a wall.
Yeah. Well, I do think like Zadorov, like there's off ice stuff that you brought that was also very tantalized into this market. Like he got the market, like him making fun of Alberta whenever huge. But then you can also go into the thing of like you've heard rumors that he warms his entry out in other teams, and like in the locker room his chick wears thin. So there's probably a lot of dynamics to it. Like if you ask the room, like, hey, let's say they move off from Myers' money, like I think the team, they love Myers. I know they do. So then like, oh, like do you upset the locker room by bringing Zadorov and losing Myers? So there's a lot of it that goes into it, I'm sure. But I do think the one thing I do kind of take umbrage with is the fact that like, yeah, they brought in a big guy that I don't think is going to solve a lot of the problems in the back end.
I also wonder if 4.6 times 5, like after the playoff performance he had, is that really the same, price that would have? I'm trying to remember what were the exact terms that Zadorov signed for and bought.
5x5, right? Or yeah, 5x5.
Yeah,
Wyatt?
okay, it's
Yeah, at least the 5x5, I believe. I don't know everything about
okay. Yeah,
Zadorov.
So Wyatt, while Harmon looks that up, we've kind of changed our format a bit where when it's like regular guests, we let you just be part of the conversation rather than us just asking you questions. And you're a great guest to do that. But no, 6 years, 5 million.
See, okay, yeah. See, that's what I'm saying is like,
oh yeah, wow.
even after the playoffs, I would have done around 4.5 times 5, but 5 million times 6, I wouldn't have done that.
Okay, that's fair. We don't know exactly what happened, but Dollywall did outline it pretty well today. So if you want to read that, that's on CanucksArmy.com. Go to Canucks News tab. You can read all about that. The full quotes from Dollywall are in there. Wyatt, great stuff, man. You're going to be a regular guest with us.
That's what I'm telling you.
Really
Bring
appreciate
me
you
on.
taking the time today. It's always nice to chat with you.
Yeah, and I'll help you with your football. I'm assuming you draft a wide receiver in the first round, but you'll get past that. You'll figure it out.
I did. I took Tyreek Hill.
Oh no! I knew it.
You called it. Why is he? Oh, he's bad because that.
Well, Tua went out, and it's
Tua.
also yeah.
coming
Running
back
backs
or
are
what?
more reliable. Yeah, well, I mean, he's concussion. So many concussions, everyone wants to retire, but only he knows where he's at. But he's had like 3 really bad concussions in his career.
Well, I hope he gets back out there. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh
For my team. Wyatt, thanks, man. Appreciate you stopping by.
Clipping that.
Yeah, thanks, boys.
There he is, Wyatt Arndt. Aren't you like that with your fantasy teams?
I don't play fantasy sports.
You don't get it then. Our thanks again to Wyatt Arndt for joining the show.
I hope this guy comes back and risks a 4th concussion just to help my fantasy team.
Yeah, no, all the best to Tua Tagovailoa. We always say that here on Canucks Conversation. Okay, let's get to our poll question, which today is brought to you by the Vancouver Whitecaps FC. Your Vancouver Whitecaps FC are finishing up a strong season, heading for their final regular season match against Real Salt Lake this Saturday. Though it's coming down to the wire with decision day looming, the Whitecaps FC have officially clinched a playoff spot. Playoff tickets for round 1 will be on sale shortly, and the wildcard match will be played away in Portland. As listeners of Canucks Conversation, you can get on the exclusive pre-sale by texting CAPS to 604-305-4530. For more information, visit whitecapsfc.com. Mark Lynch in the chat, we have to address it. He said, do you guys wear matching shirts on purpose? No, this is 2 days in a row now that it's a coincidence. I'm going to wear a different color. Oh, watch party. We better text each other and figure out.
Okay, yeah,
we'll
have to
coordinate
figure that out.
so
It's
that
at
we're
least
matching,
black.
of course. Yeah,
I feel like
the chances of this were way higher than baby blue. That's what
Yeah.
made baby blue so funny, was that it's like, how many times a week do we wear baby
Yeah.
blue? And
that's a tough look.
that was a tough look. Yeah. Okay. Let's get to anyone else. Oh no, our poll question. We got thrown off. Poll question.
This show has just been off the rails.
Once we brought Wyatt on, it's a fun show though. I'm having fun. Wyatt, or the poll question. See, Wyatt's gone. Poll question: who should start Saturday's game versus the Flyers? Archer Shelovs or Kevin Lankinen? Overwhelming majority. No real surprise here, especially for Saturday's game versus the Flyers. 87.5% say it's Kevin Lankinen. 12.5% say it's Archer Shelovs. We talked about this during the segment with Wyatt. The bigger question for me is, okay, well, if Lankinen wins that game, who do you go with on Monday against the Blackhawks? And to me, it is Shelovs. You go to Shelovs. That's a week off between games for Shelovs. Then it's a week off between games for Lankinen if he plays Saturday against Pittsburgh. That's what I would do. Win or lose, I would go to Archer Shelovs on Monday.
I agree, because you got to manage a young goaltender's confidence. You can't give him the impression that the club has lost faith in you this quickly, especially because Tampa, he played decently, right? Especially in that first period. I know the Braden Point goal was a little bit soft, but it should have been a lot worse than 1-0 based on how heavily Tampa dominated play. So yeah, I like the idea of going to Lankinen. for the game against Philly, and then the next game go back to Shelov's and assess it from there.
All right, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by Square. If you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad read. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing and new locations opening. You need to get more customers and keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to square.ca and see why Square is big in restaurants. Chat was on one today. Like, we're on one today, but the chat was also on one today. There's a lot of stuff in the chat. I saw some fighting going on in the chat. Jacob was making sure everybody was playing nice, I hope. Oh, this is good. Ty David. I think we met Ty. Did we meet Ty at the first watch party? Maybe. We met a lot of people. Ty, shout out to Ty. He's a regular listener to the show. He said, with you guys wearing the same shirt, I actually can't tell you apart.
Oh, come on.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, that's good. Off the Rails Fridays are what these are being dubbed as, these shows. There's a lot in the chat here, though. Yeah, so we've got people talking about Zadorov. Again, it's hindsight is 2020 when we see how much Desharnais has struggled. But again, it's not like we weren't talking about tying up $2 million and $3 million in Desharnais and Myers respectively. So I got to say, like, it's hard to hear that about Zadorov, a 4.6 or 4.8 by 5, and say, like, yeah, that would have been a nice thing to have. And every team gets a bad contract. Even if that's not the best contract, it's not like oh my gosh, this cripples your franchise because you signed this type deal. I don't know. The Canucks have a lot of good contracts right now.
Again, let me clarify. Like, I want to clarify the reporting here. So that, like, a 4.6, was it 4.6 or 4.8?
Now I don't remember. 4.6.
4.6 times 5 would have gotten it done before the playoffs.
No, that was after the playoffs.
That was after the playoffs.
Yeah. He was negotiating term. This is close to the draft. Let's restart after the playoffs. Fast forward to after the playoffs. NHL draft on July 1st. Oh, no. The 5th year would have got it done before the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying is, like...
But then after playoffs, the Canucks went to add a 5th year and it was rejected.
Well, yeah, because at that point his stock was a lot higher. And again, you look at the contract he got in Boston now, I wouldn't have signed that contract still.
So Dollywall added, so when they started targeting Gensel and others, that's where you get the "I felt disrespected" comment, most likely.
See, like, it's a bit misleading because it's easy to say, oh, why didn't the Canucks pay Zadorov 4.6 times 5? Well, again, it was before the playoffs. Like, before the playoffs, I don't think, like, if you polled Canucks fans, I bet like 80% of them would have said no.
There's some nuance there. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that context matters. And yeah, I mean, do I miss watching Nikita Zadorov play hockey? 100%.
Or interview him in the locker room.
Extremely entertaining.
Think about taking runs at him.
He would be a massive help for this bottom four, but also, like, let's give it some time. Let's see what management does now, and between now and the trade deadline, as far as who they potentially add to round out this blue line.
Nikita, stand behind that door for me.
I still have no idea where you're.
Well,
like, I do, but like, it was
for $1 million,
strangely articulated.
For $1 million, run through not only a door, but then the guy behind it. Also, you have to get through both.
Yeah, okay, I get it. But you could have just said he's thicker.
I could have just said that. All right. This is a good one. People were talking about Demko in the chat earlier. I think this got figured out, but there was someone in the chat. Let me see. Yeah, Brad, who's a good guy. I said it like he's a bad guy with how I said his name. But Brad's a good guy, always in the chat. He said, got to challenge quads and the type of goaltending the Canucks are used to getting. Unfortunately, Demko has been sporadic at best. Between injuries and mediocre play, he has not been consistent. Obviously, the injuries thing, you're correct. But when he's been healthy and when he's played, and let's be honest, like, I'm not even saying, oh, he's been playing through injury, so he's been bad at that point. Like, when he's played, he's been great for years now. I don't like this revisionist history that we're getting into where people are saying that Demko was anything remotely close to the problem with those Canucks teams of years past. On nights those teams got wins, it was because Demko was great. And on nights that they didn't win, it was because despite Demko being great, they couldn't do nearly enough in front of him, whether that be defend or score goals. So I need to shut this down right away. This just didn't happen. I don't think it ever happened that we were ever talking about Thatcher Demko as being a problem or part of the problem in Vancouver. I don't remember that at all. That just wasn't the case, if you ask me.
Yeah, he was a Vezina runner-up last season.
Exactly. And last season and the years before that is what I'm saying as well.
Yeah.
He was great. And it's like what I said earlier. Everybody in Vancouver knew he was great, but it took the team in front of him improving for the rest of the league to catch on. Anyways, Karn said on average, he's been a top 5 to 10 goalie in the league over his career. I agree with that. Anyways, thanks for the comment, Brad. And he's followed up with this. He said, I think he's one of the best goalies the Canucks have had. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been available enough. Even when he has played, say, 2 seasons ago, he was average. Yeah, I disagree there, but the injuries thing, obviously you want Demko to be healthier than he was. This is a good one from Warchild 89 in the chat. Child. He's just spelling it differently. Okay. What would you give Demko right now if his contract was up? We're seeing a lot of big ticket contracts signed around the league. You got Jake Ottinger getting the identical 8-year by 8.25 that Jeremy Swayman signed in Boston. We talked about UC Saros, so that's an absolute steal right now. But if Demko were up right now, or if Demko were up at the end of this season, so you're looking at signing him to an extension and making sure he doesn't hit free agency, what would you sign him to right now? I think right now you're looking at it and saying, well, he's injured. So let's see him come back. We're not in a rush, but let's build off this question a bit and say, let's say Demko comes back from the Popliteus injury and he is phenomenal down the stretch and he needs a contract this offseason. Are you willing to sign him long-term? He comes back November 1st, plays the entire season, is a Vezina candidate again, plays the entire playoffs, no issues, no injury troubles. He plays the rest of the season into the playoffs. He's phenomenal in the playoffs, all that. I don't think you're walking away from Thatcher Demko or saying, go test the open market. I think you're signing him to that deal. And again, it's not an 8-year deal because, again, Demko is going to be 29 at the end of the season. He'll be heading into his age 31 season when he's actually a free agent in 2 seasons from now, including this year. I'm talking really fast.
This is a medical question more than a hockey question.
That's a good point.
That's why I can't really I honestly can't give you a number because it's not just that he's been hurt. It's that we're talking about an injury that, according to Demko himself, no hockey goaltender has ever dealt with. So we're in completely uncharted territory as far as what his recovery process looks like. And again, even if he came back and played at a Vezina caliber level down the stretch, of course, that would give you a little bit more confidence. But what's the re-injury risk down the road? Plus, he's had separate injury issues in the past as well. Like, this is more a medical question than a hockey question. And to me, I've got to be honest, I have no idea about how confident I'd feel that Thatcher Demko can give me 40 to 50 games even consistently.
What if he does it this year and playoffs and he's a free agent? I'm putting you on the spot. I say yes, undoubtedly.
Okay, what
4 years, $9 million, done. No problem. What?
No.
Why?
$9 million?
He's an elite
and 4
goaltender.
years?
How are you going
for
to
a guy
replace
that gets hurt all the time?
He wasn't hurt this season and into the playoffs. I just told you.
What do you mean? He's hurt right now.
No, I'm telling you in my scenario.
But that still means he missed time at the start of the season.
Okay, yeah, he missed the first half of a month.
No, I would not. 9 million times 4. No.
Elite goaltender. Okay, what do you think Thatcher Demko's signing for? Let's get real for a sec. Let's get real. Okay,
2 years from now.
No, including this season and next season. He's going to be eligible to sign an extension in October. Then he's going to free agency.
He has to get healthy first.
Okay. So I'm saying, let's say he gets healthy. What do you think? Let's say he's not healthy. What do you think he's signing for as a free agent if he has another injury this year and then he's healthy, maybe an injury or 2 next year?
I don't know, but I will say is I would not give him 9 million times 4 years
unless he's fully healthy.
And he's got to prove it like full season next year too.
Okay.
But again, this question was
that's going to get
only
more expensive.
This season.
That's going to get more expensive. Let's get real.
But then at that point, okay,
he's
just
a
give me
UFA.
the 9 at that point. Like, give me the 9 million.
That's what I'm saying. So if he's great,
like, I'll use that. Like, I'll use that cap space to like upgrade. Like,
you're saying keep the 9 million to do other stuff.
In this scenario where he comes back, and let's say he plays really well down the stretch, but it's only this season, and I have to decide right now. I'm either signing 9 million times 4 or walking away from that and just taking the cap space. If it's at the end of this season, I am taking the cap space. There is too much uncertainty with that injury and his durability as a whole.
I think that's fair. And I think
maybe it's a different conversation if he's also then healthy the year after and plays well in the playoffs. But if it's at the end of this season, no, I'm not signing 9 million.
The other thing is also this team isn't as reliant on elite goaltending, or they shouldn't be. And I think with 9 million, you could get even less reliant on elite goaltending than you are even right now. So I think that's a part of it that goes into the conversation as well. But look, like, all I'm saying is when Demko is up, he's a UFA. So you're going to want to sign him to an extension. It's not going to be we're going to throw our hat in the ring with the other teams on July 1st. And you want to get this done. They're going to want to get this done. You don't want to get to July 1st, 2026 without Thatcher Demko signed. You don't. Or is it 2027? No, 2026.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't be like, look at what they're doing with Brock. They're letting him play out the final year of his deal, and they're going to assess down the road. Like, to me, if you're the Canucks, there's no rush. Like next offseason or
but that's what I'm saying.
Whenever he's first eligible for an extension.
If Brock repeats, this is the whole point. Like, this is why players do this as well. Is if Brock repeats the performance, what they could have signed him for now or in the offseason, that price is going up if he does it again.
And that's fine. I'm willing to take that. Just like the Canucks were with Brock.
And I
would
think
be willing to do that with Demko, because I want as long of a timeline to be as confident as possible that he is still the same goaltender.
And the health, I think, adds to that as well, that you want to see him be healthy.
Well, it's the main, it's the main thing.
Yeah. Good debate today.
That was fun.
That was good. Okay. Anything else in the chat here? Yeah, okay.
I'm also curious if chat has said anything about that, like, hypothetical Demko scenario.
6 million by 4 years max. You're not getting him. Like, that's the point. Like, Sniper said that. Yeah, good luck with that. That's what I'm saying. Is it's not like it's a RFA here. This is an unrestricted free agent goaltender. If Demko hit the market right now, Pop Latias popped out and all, or whatever exactly he's dealing with, right? I know it's a Pop Latias, but I don't think it's a pop. Anyways, injury and all. If Demko was a free agent tomorrow, do you think teams would be like, can't do that? Nope, we can't do that.
I mean, maybe. We're talking about an injury that no goaltender has ever had.
Okay, sure, maybe Pop Latias is a bad example, but he's a free agent at the end of this year, even if he misses until mid-November or whatever.
Yeah, that,
like, you're not getting
honest,
6 million for 4 years. It's not happening. It's just not. It's not happening. Not happening. Teams are going to sign.
Got a few people in the chat here saying Harm is correct. I agree with Harm.
I don't see those.
There's one on screen.
Thank you, Jacob.
Here's one. Quads is right. Okay, moving on.
Oh wow, what burner did you type that into?
No one said that. I just made that up. This is from Mark Lynch, going back to Zadorov a bit, and Lindholm here. He said, we gave up so much for Zadorov and Lindholm. I think swallowing that 6 year at 5 mil is something you do. It's not the worst contract the Canucks have signed. Again, he just got Tyler Myers special, right? Kind of in reverse, but still.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't have. I still don't know about. Here's the thing: if we knew Zadorov could maintain the level that he showed in the playoffs, I'd of course sign that contract in a heartbeat. But that's the thing; he hasn't always consistently been that impactful.
Rarely has he been that impactful.
I mean, when he was first acquired, most people were describing him as he's not like a bona fide proven top 4 defenseman. That he's kind of like a number 5, like a number 5 that can step up and be a number 4 if there are injuries or if you just like need to shake things up a little bit. And of course, he's a very unique player type. He's a unicorn in that sense, so that like he is valued more than your typical number 4 or 5 defenseman. But he is still ultimately like been a number 4 or 5 D-man, and so I still lean towards not having paid that personally. But yeah.
Fair enough. Today was a great episode. This was one of the most fun episodes of Canucks Convo I think we've had in a while. Do you agree?
Yeah, it was fun. It was kind of unhinged.
We didn't really talk about Elise Pettersson much. I mean, I talked about it with Wyatt. I think that's the way I
or JT Miller
look at it.
Yeah, he was the OT hero.
Oh yeah, JT Miller. Yeah. I mean, again, for a guy that clearly wasn't at his best to start the season, like he was great last night. And again, the overtime winner. Did you see the video of his kids?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh,
super cute. Yeah, I don't have it here to pull it up on screen, but it's out there. Yeah.
His wife Natalie was recording the overtime. Just in case, as soon as Miller got on the ice. It is awesome. It's all over social media. You can find it. I think Bleacher Report tweeted it out as well.
Yeah, I'll also say this: like JT deserved that outcome based off how that line played in that game. They, according to Natural Stat Trick, generated 10 scoring chances at 5-on-5. I went back and looked at the game logs of every time they did that last year. They did it 14 times. Of course, so 10 scoring chances. The Canucks don't generate a single 5-on-5 goal with the Miller line on the ice. That only happened 3 times all of last season.
Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show you what PDO regression looks like, because I bet you if they have that type of like regulation performance, that Miller line last season, they're scoring 1 or 2 goals. Like Brock alone had half a dozen scoring chances that he could have converted on. But this is where, again, last year, JT had the highest PDO in the NHL, second highest on-ice shooting percentage of all NHL forwards, whereas now things are normalizing. Bobrovsky was stellar. So now the goals are hard to come by, even though last night anyway, previous nights have been different, but last night anyway, at 5-on-5, process was really, really good.
Exactly.
And I'm glad that he got rewarded for it, because if they had lost an OT and we would have been talking about, oh, the Stars haven't gotten it done, I would have brought these same numbers to you and gone, well, actually, I still think JT Miller and that line, they weren't dominant, but they still had a really good performance.
The Stars were their stars. Like I said, Pettersson, that's got to be your floor if you're a superstar, like Pettersson is, or a star, whatever you want to say. But like Garland, Höglander, your top 6, those are your best players. That's what you need moving forward. We didn't even get into the line combos. Today was a wild, wild day, but I'll give you this take. I'm done with the Arshdeep Bains experiment in the top 6, and I'm done with Nils Amon, period. Put Arshdeep Bains in the bottom 6 where Nils Amon is. Construct a third line of Kiefer Sherwood, Teddy Bluger, and Daniel Sprung. Take your pick, whatever. I know I have 2 right-handed guys there, but configure your bottom 6 that way. You've got Pius Suter, you've got Teddy Bluger. Let those guys center their own lines. You've got Kiefer Sherwood. Get Daniel Sprung back in the lineup. Take Nils Amon out. Put Arshdeep Bains in the bottom 6. And then Jake DeBrusk goes to the Miller Besser line. That, to me, like, that's how they need to construct their lines tomorrow against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'd be on board with something like that.
All right. Great show today. Harm. Let's get to our... No, we talked about Lankinen earlier. Someone accused us of not talking about Lankinen. We talked about Lankinen.
I just put it in the chat. They might have joined late. That does happen. So sometimes people miss the first story or first thing we talk about. Yes, we gave Lankinen his much deserved props at the start of the show.
Let's get to our bet 365 bet of the day. Harmon.
Oh, also that reminds me, you cannot bet Canucks money line anymore.
You finally
went away.
Also, you bet Habs money line and they lost 4-1. So
this is a quads curse.
All right.
See, this is no wonder the Mariners didn't make the playoffs. You've been betting on them all the time.
You know who's going to curb this little trend that you guys think exists, even though it doesn't? The Wagon Flames. We are taking the Calgary Flames tomorrow. Underdogs somehow. Sportsbooks haven't caught up yet. At plus 120 to take down the Seattle Kraken tomorrow night, Saturday. Flames, Kraken, take the Flames, plus 120. That is our Bet365 bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Great show today, guys. And everybody in the chat, a lot of people in the chat as well today. Thank you, everybody, for contributing. If you haven't yet, go buy your ticket for the watch party. Come meet us in person. Come hang out with us. Come watch us play arcade basketball. Nationgear.ca under the events tab. That's where you find it. Again, it's for a good cause, supporting the BC Mental Health Foundation. So please show up tomorrow. Be loud. We want to give away prizes and we want to meet all of our wonderful listeners tomorrow, Saturday. 3 p.m. doors open. Greta Bar, YVR. Make sure you go get your tickets. Nationgear.ca. Hey, you might get a chance to skate on the ice at Rogers Arena, which is a cool experience that I'm pretty happy that we get to give away. So check us out tomorrow. Greta Bar, YVR. We will wrap it up there for my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. My name is Dave Quadrelli. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.